Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett along with Kent Myers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and talking about topical issues. And today we're going to talk about an issue that's coming to the forefront once again because it's the 100th year anniversary of a very important event in Oklahoma history.
Yes, we're almost to that 100th year. We're going to be talking about an event in Oklahoma, the 1921 Tulsa Race Riot, and the commission that was formed to celebrate the centennial or acknowledge the centennial of that event. And we've got the project manager, Jamaal Dye, coming to talk to us about it. He's a very knowledgeable young man and very engaging, and I think our audience will find this very interesting.
And I think they'll leave with a new understanding of the events that occurred back in 1921. We'll be back with more on The Verdict.
Rosetta Stone Chickasaw, take one.
Action.
My name is Nevaeh Smith. I am 14 and I am Chickasaw. Hitlali.
My name is Jariah Iachabi. I'm 13 and I'm Chickasaw.
Rosetta Stone Chickasaw Level 1 includes 40 lessons. It's centered around a Chickasaw family.
I'm really proud to be part of this. I'm glad I got to take part in something so big and so exciting. It's awesome knowing that we can be able to help other people learn the Chickasaw language.
So host Chief Follett, Bill.
I'm proud of my heritage and keeping the culture alive. I want people to use these lessons and spread the language more.
That's a wrap.
Chipisalacho.
Chapisalacho.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Well, as we talked about in the opening segment, we are really pleased here on The Verdict to welcome Jamaal Dye to our show to talk about the 1921 Tulsa Race Riot Centennial Commission and the work that he does for it. Jamaal did his undergraduate work at the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff and did his master's degree work at Langston University here in Tulsa. He was in private business for a while. He has been a board member of the Greenwood Cultural Center for a little while. He's been involved with the Race Riot Commission for a couple of years. He also is involved with RISE 1922, which we'll ask him about. Jamaal, thanks so much for coming. We really do appreciate your time.
Thank you all for having me.
Yeah, Jamaal, when you hear the term life of significance, what does that mean to you?
It means a life that's meaningful, a life that you live a life with a purpose. We all were placed here for a purpose, for some reason, and you live that life according to what you've been called here to do. And we have to understand that significance is, it's not about what you've been equipped with, but it's how you use that to be a blessing to other people. And so my motto is living a life of significance is how you serve others. And so that's truly what it means to me, is being a servant to others.
Well, that guided your thinking process in accepting this project manager job, I take it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I wanted to be of service to my community and to our state, and also to the nation, to really help to tell the Greenwood story. And
yeah, that's what I'd like for you to do now, if you would, is just discuss the 1921 race riot in Tulsa in the Greenwood district. A good bit, probably half our viewers in Oklahoma City, and may not be nearly as familiar with it as Tulsa viewers would be. So just kind of give us a view of that, if you will.
And set the scene for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So very well, before we start, we want to actually understand that words matter. And so for many years, historically, this tragic event was known as the riot. And then as we go through and we talk later, I'll talk to you why it was called the riot and how now we are reverting to refer to it as the massacre, the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. And so setting the scene in Tulsa, Oklahoma, it was a time when African Americans in the 20th century were doing extremely well. They were coming from all over to the historic Greenwood district. A gentleman by the name of O.W. Gurley was able to purchase land, and he started his business in the historic Greenwood district. And they tell the story of how the pioneers of the Greenwood district would start their business, and then they go back and reach back and grab their brothers and sisters and neighbors and help them to start their business. And so the historic Greenwood district was solely African American district. It was African American homes, businesses, hospitals, airplane line, whatever businesses that African Americans needed, they were right there in historic Greenwood district. Schools, churches, over 600 businesses in that district, in that area. And so it was an affluent place. It was a thriving community for African Americans. The dollar circulated roughly around between 15 and 20 times in that community. And so it was very uncommon at that time. And so the Greenwood district was a place of home. It gave Black Tulsans a sense of community, a sense of belonging. And so you can only imagine the camaraderie that dealt in that district. And so, during that time of segregation, you can also imagine the jealousy that reigned at that time. And so as we fast forward to the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, the incident that occurred was between a young boy by the name of Dick Rowland and a girl by the name of Sarah Page. Dick Rowland was a teenage boy who had dropped out of school, and at that time he was working as a shoe shine boy in the Drexel building. And so the incident, they alleged that Dick Rowland assaulted this young girl, this young white elevator operator girl. He assaulted her, he ran out of the elevator. And there are conflicting stories. Many people say that he assaulted her. Some say he tripped and accidentally grabbed her. We don't know what the actual truth was. And so we've heard several of those stories. However, that incident in particular is what really spewed this massacre. Word got out. He wasn't arrested initially that day. He was arrested the next day. And word broke out around the town. The Tulsa Tribune, which was the newspaper at that time, let out in their headlines, "Nab Negro for attacking girl in the elevator." And it may not be the necessarily quote, but something to that extent. And African Americans knew at that time that it was nothing for a Black boy to be lynched, because prior to, a white gentleman in Tulsa had been lynched. And so African Americans were thinking, we know that if a white boy could be lynched in Tulsa, surely a Black teenage boy who was accused of assaulting a white girl could be lynched. And so rumors circulated around the community about this happening, and tensions were already high. And they utilized that event to catapult the tragedy of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. And so by May 31st, 1921, Tulsa was in ashes. Buildings destroyed, homes destroyed, lives were lost, innocent lives were taken. And it's important to understand that when you tell the Greenwood story, we have to also tell that there were white business owners on Greenwood. One of the very prevalent names who are still operating here in Tulsa today, the Zeros, had a business on Greenwood. And so those white business owners would hide African Americans in their businesses to protect them from the rioters. And so, this was the largest tragedy on Americans by Americans.
Well, did hundreds take part? Did thousands take part? And did they gather and then move into the Greenwood district?
So,
what were the details on that?
So once Dick Rowland was arrested, he was housed in the county jail at the time. And the sheriff, there were white, as the books say, white mobsters who wanted to get a piece of Dick Rowland. However, the sheriff had him protected in the jail. Black residents from Greenwood came to the jail to check on Dick Rowland to make sure everything was okay. The sheriff reassured him that they had everything under control, and at the time, I guess he felt like he did. However, there's a story of an incident with a black man and a white man with a gun. They're tussling over the gun. The gun sounds off, and then all hell breaks loose. And so it was hundreds of people in the Greenwood district that invaded the Greenwood district, and the Greenwood residents were just overtaken. And there are also accounts, with history, you have to tell the facts. There are accounts of airplanes flying around the sky. They talk about the bombing on Black Wall Street, and many survivors have given testimonies of seeing airplanes circulating around the community. Some people say that those airplanes were just checking on to see what was going on in the community. Others say that they remember those planes dropping some type of chemical down on the community to help accelerate the fire. And so homes were burned up, homes were looted. There were stories of Caucasian men saying, how dare these black people have a grand piano in their house and I don't have mine. So the incident in the elevator was really the key to what they had been talking about forever. It was a jealousy thing. It was an envy thing. White Tulsans envied black Tulsans for being able to be so prosperous and be so well off. And so those envy and jealousy are the two things that really caused this tragic incident.
Talk about the casualties a little bit. How many folks were killed, approximately? How many injured?
So during the 2001 race riot, not Centennial Commission, the study of the race riot, they named at least 300 casualties. And that's what books have said, and I believe that's due to the number of death certificates and things of that nature. However, it's also been told that the number is really too enormous to account for. Testimonies have been given of bodies being thrown on trains and driving out. There have also been talks of mass graves, and so I don't think we can accurately tell the number of casualties and the death toll. I was able to talk to a gentleman came into the Greenwood Cultural Center, and he let one of the people know there that he had looked for a space in a cemetery in a town that was about 30 miles outside of Tulsa, and the cemetery told him, you can't look over there, that's a mass grave from victims of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. And so to actually give an accurate account, we'll never know. We'll never know.
What was the city's, well, let's get to a break and come back, and I'll ask you about the response from a civic mindedness. We're talking to Jamaal Dye, and he's the project manager of the 1921 Race Riot Centennial Commission. We'll have more with him on The Verdict when we return.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative, and this year, our competition teams rank number 2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Jamaal Dye is our guest today on The Verdict. He's the project manager of the 1921 Race Riot Centennial Commission. When we went to a break, we were talking about the devastating results of the massacre in Tulsa. May of 1921, 35 square blocks are ultimately decimated. I'm wondering about the municipal response. Was there fire trucks dispatched? Was there a police report filed? How did the government handle this event at the time?
So, Mick, that's a very good question. Some attribute some of the devastation to the government. They state that the government, there have been accusations that the government played a part in this whole tragedy. In fact, there are also accounts that the Tulsa Police Department aided rioters by giving them weapons and ammunition to be a part of this horrific event. And so at a time like this, there was really not a huge, overwhelming response. And from the city government or the state government, however, with years past, there have been some types of apologies that previous mayors and police chiefs have given on behalf of those institutions that they were not even a part of back then.
We have kind of alternatively talked about the event as a riot or a massacre, and you very wisely said words matter. What can you tell us a little bit more about the massacre riot comparison?
Absolutely, and we also want to know that other words that could be used are, pogrom, Holocaust, those words. But when listening to interviews from survivors and to hear them refer to this and say, this was not a riot, this was a massacre. And also during that time, insurance clauses stated that in the act of a riot, these businesses would not be able to rebuild. And so at the time, you talk about city government and the municipalities at the time, they used the word riot to prohibit these businesses from being able to rebuild. And so many African Americans choose not to refer to it as a riot because those were the systems that were put in place to withhold our ancestors from being able to rebuild. But I want to talk about, so often we talk about the massacre and the devastation and the tragedy, but what people fail to realize is that the Greenwood residents were and still are a resilient people. You can look at different pictures and you read different books and you'll see how even after the massacre and those homes and businesses were ruined, there's a picture that I love so dearly. It's a picture of B.C. Franklin and I.H. Spears and a young lady who was their secretary at the time. They were two lawyers and attorneys, and they had set up a tent because their business had been destroyed, but they were so resilient and adamant about helping the people that despite the devastation, they were determined to serve and to help their people. And so this community is continuously resilient. By 1925, Greenwood was back thriving and better than it was. And so often people talk about the massacre and they think that is what destroyed Greenwood totally. But again, we talk about how resilient they were. They started back building. By 1922, they were rebuilding and putting those things back together. And there were, again, systems put in place and reasons that companies wouldn't sell them lumber and sell them bricks. And so they would have to go out of state to get those materials to build back because people simply were jealous and did not want to see this thriving African-American community in Tulsa. And so we have to highlight the resiliency of that community and how they just continue to bounce back despite everything that comes against them.
Well, as you mentioned earlier, this was not discussed publicly very often for decades. Right. And you could literally grow up in Tulsa and not really even hear about it, maybe only just faintly. And so I guess the question I want to ask is, how did that change? Was there a person or a few people that said, look, we got to talk about this? When did that groundswell start?
So it was actually, you're totally right, Mick. It was known as Tulsa's Terrible Secret. Nobody wanted to talk about it. In fact, that article that was in the Tribune, you can't find that piece of paper anywhere. It has been wiped out. And so nobody wanted to talk about it, but to my recollection, and I'm only a young guy, the people that I remember bringing this to the forefront were former state Senator Maxine Horner and former state representative Don Ross. Those are the people as a child that I remember really bring this to the forefront during their time at the Capitol. And so.
What about the 100th year remembrance? Whose idea was that?
That was Senator Kevin Matthews. Senator Kevin Matthews was the brain. This is his brainchild. He was the mind behind that, and he wanted to really foster the entrepreneurial spirit of the Greenwood pioneers and ancestors, and also to boost entrepreneurship and tourism in the historic Greenwood district. You look around Tulsa and how Tulsa's thriving and growing, and if you go to Greenwood, you know, at night after 7 o'clock, it kind of looks like a ghost town. And so he wanted to really put something together to revitalize that area and commemorate the lives that were lost and honor the victims and those family members. And so this was Senator Kevin Matthews' idea.
Talk about some of the projects you're working on for the centennial event.
Okay, so some of the things that we've already done leading up to 2021, as Mick talked about, this wasn't really well talked about, and so we would ask teachers why they weren't talking about it, and they said that they wouldn't have the materials or they didn't have the resources. So the commission, along with the Oklahoma History Center, various authors, historians, teachers, principals, came together to put together a 1-day lesson plan and a 5-day lesson plan to launch onto our website for Oklahoma teachers. It meets the Oklahoma standards for them to be able to teach that history. We've also done some artwork within the Greenwood district to really highlight and capitalize on the Greenwood spirit and foster the Greenwood spirit. We currently have started a Greenwood Avenue pop-up shop where Black entrepreneurs can rent a space to sell the products that they make, and so we've done that. But one of the big things that we're really working on right now in this phase 1 is a reconfiguration and a redesign of the Greenwood Cultural Center. As we know, we have 2 entities that are housed there, the Greenwood Cultural Center and the John Hope Franklin Center. And so we want to make a center that is state of the art, that people from all across the nation come to Tulsa to learn about the history of the Greenwood District. I was able to travel to DC in the National African American Museum of History and Culture, and they have an exhibit about Tulsa. Right. I went to the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, and they talk about Tulsa in their museum, and they have interactive exhibits. And so the commission steering committee just said, what would it be like, and what would it be for Tulsa if we could have something like that right here in our city and in our community? And so that's one of the big pieces that we're working on in our phase 1. And so rebranding that district and having a nice, robust Greenwood Cultural Center.
What other projects are you doing? You talk about that as phase 1. Are there other phases that are in project?
So we haven't solidified what those other phases would be, but there are other things such as a pathway to hope. We want to tie the Greenwood district to the John Hope Franklin Park. They are a few, maybe a mile or so away, but we want to be able to make a trail with historical markers that tell the significance of these individuals, pioneers. And so those are the things that we're working on right now.
What do you want the general public to know at this point? How can they get involved? What do you want them to do getting ready for this?
I want the general public to know that this is a commission for everybody, not just Greenwood District, not just Tulsa, not just the surrounding areas, but for everybody in Oklahoma to gather around this, even as horrible as it is and as difficult as it may be to talk about. Let's talk about it accurately. Let's talk about it and tell the truth, and then work together to build on how we can move forward and doing this. And they can look on our website, which is tulsa2021.org, or contact me if they have any ideas, thoughts, concerns, or questions. But we want everybody to have input about how we commemorate this event and move forward from tragedy to triumph.
Jamaal Dye is the project manager of the 1921 Race Riot Centennial Commission. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Mick. I
appreciate it. Thank you, Jamaal.
Thanks, Ken.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Kent and I'll have a final word when we return.
Big Tobacco lied for decades about the adverse health effects of smoking. Legally, here's what tobacco companies are forced to say now. Here's what they're really saying. Get the truth behind the lies at StopsWithMe.com, a program of TSET.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, Each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information. We are back on The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers. We just finished a show with Jamaal Dye, who's working on the 100th commemoration of the race massacre from the Greenwood district here in Tulsa.
Well, it's a sad story, but a story that we dare not forget because of lessons to be learned from it. And Jamaal is a wonderful spokesman for the commission. I'm sure the projects will be effective and powerful.
Education materials being produced so the young people of our state will learn more about this event. And of course, you'll be getting more and more information as we get closer to the 100th year remembrance. We appreciate Jamaal Dye for all his work. Let me give you some website information, how you can get more information. First of all, Jamaal's work is at tulsa2021.org. That's tulsa2021.org. And we have a website. If you'd like to go to our website and talk to us about a guest you'd like to see appear or a subject you'd like to see us discuss, all you have to do is let us know. And our website is theverdict.tv. That's going to do it for this week's show. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We'll see you next week right here on another episode of The Verdict.